Firstly, you need to identify whether the question basically asks you to identify the correct or the incorrect options. You need to go for the elimination of extreme words. You can go for word deconstruction, similar options, and finally, if you don't have any other logic, go for the most specific option, and I'll tell you how to do it. So in case of multiple questions, you need to identify the general and specific statements, complementary and contradictory statements, single and multiple facts, general and extreme words, elimination techniques, and also patterns. So on the upcoming webinar tomorrow, I'll be showing you all the 10 type of questions which UPSC asks, and also the patterns and also the elimination techniques that you need to go step by step in order to solve all these questions. Good day everyone, Sreejay here. I'll ask you a very simple question. Have you ever felt that after putting all humanly efforts which are possible by an aspirant, you have failed to qualify prelims, be 2024, be 2025? Now, why does it happen? It happens because the UPSC Prelims is not only a test of knowledge, rather it's a test of how well you identify and understand the questions. Now, here's something that no one has ever told you. In UPSC Prelims, there are a total of 10 type of questions. Now, if you are able to identify them, understand the patterns, and understand all the elimination techniques behind it, you will be invisible as me, who has significantly scored higher than the cutoff in all the prelims which I have written. Now, this is exactly what I'm going to be teaching you in the upcoming webinar on Wednesday and exactly 7 p.m. Let me share a single example regarding the same. You can see here, firstly, we'll deal with how to solve the single statement questions, because single statement questions are the most common in case of UPSC. Around 20 to 30 questions come from single statements every year. Now, how do you solve it? Either you know it factually, or you apply your knowledge along with your elimination techniques, or you purely go for your elimination techniques, right? Now, how do you attempt this question? You can pause a video here, you can take a minute, and you try attempt this question. The question here basically asks you, among the following tiger reserves, which one has the largest area under critical tiger habitat? Now, this is a very factual question. But then, is it very factual, or can you apply any logic here? Now, if you know that Nagarjunasagar Srisalem is the largest tiger reserve in the country, okay? If you know that Nagarjunasagar Srisalem is the largest tiger reserve in the country, you can take an intelligent guess here, right? Now, if this is the largest tiger reserve, it might also be the largest area under critical tiger habitat, right? Now, if you use your logic here, if you apply that knowledge and your logic here, you will be able to get to the answer. And the answer is Nagarjunasagar Srisalem, because it is the largest tiger reserve. Now, the largest tiger reserve might also have the largest critical tiger habitat, right? Now, this is not what I'm going to teach you in the upcoming webinar. Rather, I'm going to teach you how to solve questions without using much logic and by using simple basic elimination techniques. Now, how do you do, or how do you think, how do you set a guideline on how to identify the correct answer in case of a single statement question? Firstly, you need to identify whether the question basically asks you to identify the correct or the incorrect options. You need to go for the elimination of extreme words. You can go for word deconstruction, similar options, and finally, if you don't have any other logic, go for the most specific option, and I'll tell you how to do it. Now, what is meant by correct and incorrect options? This is the first and the basic thing that you need to do. Which one of the following statements about the Sangam literature is correct? Now, what statements tend to be correct? Is it the factual statements that tend to be correct? Or is it the general statements that tend to be correct? What do you think? It's mostly the general statements which tend to be correct, right? Because factual statements have facts, examples, it have data, and these can go wrong. But in case when all these three are not provided in a statement, then how will that statement go wrong? Now, when a correct option is asked, or UPSC asks you to identify the correct option, you must go for the very general options, because general options doesn't have any facts and would be correct almost 101%. Now here, first option, Sangam poems have devoid of any reference to material culture. Now, any is a very extreme word, right? Material culture can be gold, silver, beat, anything. Now, Sangam has reference to all these. Option C, Sangam poems have no reference to warrior ethic. Now, here also an extreme word is here. Warrior ethic can be the Akam and also the Puram poems. So, warrior ethic is also mentioned. Anyways, no is a very extreme word here. So, you can eliminate here. Sangam literature refers to magical forces as irrational. Now, what do you think? In a society which lived around 200 BC, do you think they'll refer magical forces irrational? This is not very progressive society as we have now, right? Even still, people are still there, as we saw in Bihar today. 5 children were killed, five people from a family were killed due to the witchcraft. So still there are such people. But then what I'm saying is, it's not possible. They wouldn't say that the magical force is irrational in the 200 BC. So you can go for option B. Now, can you find any facts in option B? The social classification of Varnas were known to the Sangam poets. This is a very general term, right? Okay, they were known. You can't never say that they had no reference, they had no knowledge of the Varna system. Therefore, this is a very general statement and you can take this one as correct. Now, what about this question? What if a question asks you on the basis of identifying the incorrect statements? Now here, you basically think the other way, right? Now, when can a statement be incorrect? It's when they have more number of facts or more number of examples or when more number of data is given. Now, which do you think among the options here have more number of facts or data? Now here, Tansen invented many ragas. Okay, Tansen must have invented many ragas. Tansen composed songs on its own patterns. Now, this is a role of a court king, of a court singer, right? He used to sing poems on the base on for the king. Now here, Tansen composed Drupads on Hindu gods and goddesses. Now, Tansen was a Hindu, so he must have composed at least one Drupad for any of the Hindu gods and goddesses. But what about first option? Here, Tansen was the title given to him by Emperor Akbar. Now here, it might not be Emperor Akbar. It can be Shah Jahan, it can be Humayun, or it can be any other different king. Or else, Tansen was not the title. Maybe Mian was the title given. Now, since there are multiple facts which can go wrong here, and you cannot find any facts here, all the other three statements are very general, therefore they cannot be incorrect. Only this statement has certain facts in it, therefore it can be incorrect. What do? You go for statement A, which can be incorrect, and statement A is the incorrect option here. Now, what about another option? Another logic. It's basically dealing with the extreme options, right? Secondly, you have to go for the statements. You have to identify the statements where extreme options are given. So what is the question basically asked? In which of the following statements does the impact of Industrial Revolution on India during the first half of 19th century? Now, the first half of 19th century basically refers to 1850s. Now, here the Indian handicraft were ruined. Possibly, it can be ruined. Machines were introduced in India in large numbers. Now, large is an extreme word, right? Do you think machines were introduced in very large numbers at that time? Do you think railway lines were made in many parts of India at that time? The first railway line was in 1853. Do you think heavy duties were imposed on the imports? Why would British do that? Maybe exports, they can impose heavy duties. Why would they import, or why would they force import duties, or why would they impose heavy duties on the imports? Now, heavy is here, which is an extreme word. Many is here, which is an extreme word. Large is here, which is an extreme word. But then, in case of option A, Indian handicrafts were ruined. This is a very general statement. Indian handicraft were ruined, and UPSC cannot say that they were not ruined. Therefore, option A is the right answer. Now, using this method, you will be able to eliminate almost 30 to 40% of the UPSC questions in related to ABCD questions. You can see here, all these questions we can use the same logic. Now, the next one would be going with what do you do when the term-based questions are asked? UPSC usually have this tendency to ask the term-based questions, right? Now, here you can see the term in arc, sometimes in use. Now, always when a term-based question is used, you split the topics, you split the term. So, in arc, you split it into India and also Arctic. Now, among the four options, which can you find both India and the word Arctic is given? Now, here India is given, but then Antarctic is given. Here, India is given, but no Arctic is not there. Here, India is given, but then no Arctic is there. But then what about option D? Here you can see India and also the word Arctic is here. Therefore, you can take option D as the answer. Now, what about this one? Hind Mazdoor Sabha. The word Hind should be there, Mazdoor should be there. Now, what do you think, or what do you think when you listen to the word Hindu Mazdoor Sabha? Is it a South Indian or a North Indian organization? It's definitely a North Indian organization, right? So, Krishna Pillai, EMS Namboodiripadu, KC George, these are basically Dravidian names, or basically these are Malayalis. You can eliminate that. Jayaprakash Narayan, Deen Dayal Upadhyaya, M.N. Roy, these are North Indian people. Sir C.P. Ramaswamy, Kamaraj, Veerasingham Bhattu are South Indian people. You can eliminate them. Ashok Mehta, T.S. Ramanujan, and G.G. Mehta can be North Indian people. But then what about option B? Do you think Jayaprakash Narayan, who is a socialist, Deen Dayal Upadhyaya, who was members of BJP, and M.N. Roy, who was a communist, would come together and form an organization? That is highly unlikely, right? So therefore, you can eliminate option D, option B, and go for option D, which is the right answer here. Now, using this method, you can eliminate all these term-based questions. Basically, what you have to do, you have to split the topics. split the words into 2 or even into 4 and identify those options which has all the terms in it. What about this one? Aerial metagenomics. The word aerial should be there, meta should be there, and also genomic should be there. Now, among these, what do you think has all these 3 options? Meta, genomics, and aerial. Now, let's take the word genome. DNA has genome. Genetic makeup has genome. Using airborne devices to collect blood samples doesn't have genome. Sending drones to inaccessible areas to collect samples doesn't have genome. So we have directly eliminated option C and D. Now, what about aerial? Collecting DNA samples from air is aerial. But here, in the second option, understanding the genetic makeup of avian species. Now, then UPSC could have provided what is avian metagenomics and not aerial metagenomics. Therefore, since the word aerial has direct relation with aerial, you can go with option A, which is also the right answer to this. Now, there are significant number of questions. Maybe this is one of my favorite questions. You can pause and find the answer here. So here, what are the words that should be there? There should be fractional should be there, orbital should be there, bombardment should be there, and system should be there. Now, in case for something to bombard, there should be bomb or there should be missile, right? Now, which of the options have a bomb or a missile? A spacecraft lands on another planet after making several orbital motions, doesn't have any bomb or any bombardment. A spacecraft moves along a comet with same distance and surface, doesn't have any explosion, so therefore we can eliminate this. Here, a hypersonic missile is there, which can bombard. Here, a missile is also there, which can bombard. Now, what about the other one? Orbit. A hypersonic missile is launched into space to counter the asteroid. It doesn't have the word orbit. But then here, a missile is put into a stable orbit, satisfy this one. Now, therefore, you can directly go for option C, which is also the right answer. So, always when terms question 1, you split it into 4 or split it into 2 and identify those options which actually has all these 4 words or even the 2 words in case of a 2-word question as well. Now, what about similar statements? This is also one of the logic that we use in case of single statement questions. So what is the logic here? Now, why does UPSC provide similar statements? It's basically to confuse you with the correct option, right? Now, why do you think that UPSC provide a similar statement, similar options? So you have one correct option. Now, why does UPSC provide another similar option? It's basically to confuse you with the correct option, right? So what is the logic that we take? In case when UPSC provide 2 similar options, either one of them would be correct because UPSC provides another option to confuse you with the correct option. So here, ELISA Pathfinder and Evolved ELISA, one of them was the answer. Gene Travestier and GT Thabanaut, one of them was the answer. In case of here, a credit system, gold tranche is basically referred to IMF, one of them was the answer. These are 2 options relating to islands, so therefore one of them was the answer. Here, the best means of salvation was devotion, which is very similar to salvation was to be obtained through mediation, very similar options. The best means of salvation was devotion was the right answer here. Now, on the final case, you can always go for the more specific option. Okay, now that is what we do in case we don't have any other logic to support the same. Now, what does the more specific logic mean? Now, let's do a question. The Vittal Vidanshak, the first monthly journal to have untouchable people as its target audience, was published by Gopal Baba Walankar, Jyotiba Phule, Mohandas Karamchand Gandhi, and Bhimrao Ramji Ambedkar. Now, you can pause the video and try to find out the answer to the question. Now, what do you think, or why do you think that UPSC have provided Gopal Baba Walankar as the option here? Why do you think UPSC have provided the same? If UPSC wanted to provide a random option, would UPSC provide something such as Gopal Baba Walankar? UPSC could have provided Jawaharlal Nehru. UPSC could have provided Sardar Vallabhbhai Patel, or UPSC could have provided any other person who fought for untouchability, right? Why did UPSC provide Gopal Baba Walankar if that was not the correct answer? Now, by using this logic, we can directly go with the answer, which is Gopal Baba Walankar, because if it was not the option, then why did UPSC provide the UPSC could have provided a very general any other option, right? Now, what about this one? Limonite and rutile, abundantly available in certain coastal tracts of India, are source of which of the following? Aluminium is a general option. Copper, which is a general option. Iron is a general option. Now, why did UPSC provide titanium here? If titanium was not the answer, could UPSC think of, okay, fine, I'll provide the option titanium here. Was that possible? No, right? So here, titanium is a very specific option, or you can say the odd one out. Therefore, titanium can be the answer, and titanium is the answer to this question. Now, this is how you take the most specific option. So when a single statement comes to you, or UPSC asks you about a single statement question, you need to think in lines. First one, is it UPSC is asking about correct or incorrect statement? How do I do it factually? If factually doesn't work, then I go for the correct and incorrect statement. You go for the general and the factual questions, factual statements. You go for word deconstruction in case any term-based question is asked. You go for identifying the extreme words. You go for similar options, or else you go for the specific option. Now here, I have told you how to identify the single statements. Exactly, in case of multiple statements as well, we have several other logics regarding the same. So in case of multiple questions, you need to identify the general and specific statements, complementary and contradictory statements, single and multiple facts, general and extreme words, elimination techniques, and also patterns. So as you can see here, for each type of question, we have a set of guidelines on how you should go with the question. It's not like randomly you think about something. You have a set of guidelines, you have a set of elimination strategies, which you need to test in this upcoming test series. And also, by doing this test series and by getting the proper mentorship, you will be ready to face and you will become invisible for the 2026. So on the upcoming webinar tomorrow, I'll be showing you all the 10 type of questions which UPSC asks, and also the patterns and also the elimination techniques that you need to go step by step in order to solve all these questions. So I hope you enjoy the session, and see you all on tomorrow at exactly 7 p.m. Wednesday for the webinar. Thank you.